Hey everyone, I am here with Alex Tarnava. He is the founder of Drink HRW, and we're here to talk about hydrogen water, the benefits of hydrogen water, the studies related to hydrogen water, and how it can help you improve your health. Now, I'm going to have Alex take over and tell us about his background and how he got into this.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
Yeah, great having you here, Alex.
Yeah, my story is a little bit like yours. I was motivated by my own health. I got pretty sick about 5 years ago, the prime of my athletic career. I was 29. I was training 6 to 8 hours a day in various martial arts and CrossFit. And I was actually training for a CrossFit competition, and I developed sudden onset narcolepsy. I was sleeping 16 to 18 hours a day. I had central nervous system shut down. My C-reactive protein levels were at 34, whatever it is, milligrams a deciliter or something. You know, they're like over 11 times normal. I was severely anemic despite being on 6,000 to 8,000 calories a day, right?
Wow.
For my training. With the central nervous system shut down, it meant I had no explosive movements. You know, I went from a 54-inch plyometric jump to not being able to jump an inch off the ground onto a plate, right? But at the same time, none of my strength was affected. My deadlift, squat didn't budge. So at the same time, my best friend and roommate, he had been training for a triathlon, and he was a competitive triathlete, more competitive in things like Spartan races, obstacle course races. A guy that ran like a 34 10K at the end of a triathlon, very fit. He developed pneumonia. He missed 3 weeks of work and had to go to the hospital several times. So we both had some sort of virus. It ravaged us. And then both of us, it ended up in long-term health consequences. When the dust settled, I had arthritis in 8 spots. Right?
Wow.
My shoulder was moderate to advanced osteoarthritis. Basically overnight, it froze. Right? So I ended up getting cortisone injections and going on 1,000 milligrams of Naproxen a day. It wasn't very long until I developed multiple ulcers. Right? So I had to quit. Right? And after a couple cortisone injections, with trying to continue training, I had partially torn my rotator cuff. My orthopedic surgeon didn't want to let me continue having cortisone injections because he said I'm just making it worse, right? I'm getting rid of the inflammation and training as if nothing was wrong. And at that time, I was just really desperate to find something. You know, my shoulder was completely frozen. I couldn't sleep at night.
How long were you having these issues after you stopped the intensive training?
After I stopped the intensive training, my shoulder was still so bad, it was within days of stopping Naproxen that I completely had a frozen shoulder. So I couldn't put on a jacket, couldn't lift my arm up.
But how long was the period? Because obviously the training was a contributing factor.
So
how long did you stop your training is what I'm asking.
Until like my shoulder froze. So my shoulder froze until I got on the Naproxen, got a cortisone injection. After the dust settled from being sick. And I continued training, but not to the same level. Instead of 6 to 8 hours a day, I was maybe training 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. I'd scaled it back a bit. That was from September to April, May, right? Is when I developed the ulcers. So it definitely increased my damage in that time, continuing to do things like power cleans and, deadlifts and, snatches and going overhead. But when it got really bad, I was desperately searching PubMed, looking for anything that could kind of regulate the inflammatory response. And hydrogen kept on popping up, which was a bit frustrating because I already owned a machine to make hydrogen water. Was doing nothing. And I got in the machine to make hydrogen water largely because I was aware of the hydrogen research for a few years before that on its ability to selectively, reduce the hydroxyl radical. But it just kind of dawned on me. I bought this machine for like $4,500 or $5,000. How do I even know it's making hydrogen? Right? Because
Okay.
a salesman told me it made hydrogen.
What about the bubbles? That doesn't tell you anything, you're saying?
It doesn't tell you anything. There wasn't very many bubbles, and you see the bubbles
Right.
leaving. So like,
Right. They dissipate. You got to like drink it right after, maybe.
yeah, well, on that machine, when I ended up getting it tested, it had no detectable hydrogen.
And this was how long after the bubbles stopped?
Immediately, when you test it immediately. So this was a machine where you flow, right?
Okay.
Your constant flow of hydrogen water,
Mm,
an ionizer machine, right? By electrolysis. So testing immediately, it had no detectable hydrogen. In fact, I had to triple the volume to reduce
okay.
one drop. So it was about 0.03 parts per million of hydrogen, which is
Okay.
way below the therapeutic dose. So that company basically told me they say there's hydrogen in the water, but they don't guarantee any amount. And that's more
Hmm.
water, right?
So that was 3.3 parts per million.
0.03 parts per million.
Oh, 0.03. Because I was thinking 3.3 actually, based on my recollection, sounds
Yeah,
like it's pretty good.
yeah, that would be one of the highest doses on the planet at 3.3. No, it was 0.03. So it was nowhere close to therapeutic.
Yeah, that's nothing. You won't feel anything from that.
Um, so rather than feeling cheated, well, I did feel cheated, but I actually was hopeful. I'm like, maybe hydrogen can still help me because I haven't been getting hydrogen. So
Right.
I started buying the full studies on the early human research to see how the researchers were making it. And the only really two methods they were using was either bubbling hydrogen through water, through gas tanks, which wasn't really feasible to have a giant H2 tank in my house. And also in reading some of the papers, they'd have to bubble gas for like half an hour. So now you're bubbling straight gas into an enclosed space for half an hour. It could be explosive, or using magnesium, right? So I started researching a lot on how to get the magnesium to work. I bought magnesium sticks. They didn't work very well. Tried a few methods that currently were using magnesium. They didn't get very much hydrogen. And the most impressive results were the studies that had the highest dosages of H2, the highest concentrations. So I went, just kind of did everything I could, and I found a certain, powdered magnesium, right? That I assessed as would create the smallest bubbles and, have the best results. And I started making these tablets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pressing them by hand and experimenting with formulations, changing it, experimenting. And in not long, I was getting, in a sealed container, 3 or 4 ppm.
Mm-hmm.
When I started chugging that down, and I was drinking several of those a day, my shoulder completely loosened. And at
Mm-hmm.
that time, my hip had like completely seized too,
Mm-hmm.
my left hip. I went from, being able to play rubber guard on my left side and jujitsu, to be able to touch my ankle to my face quite easily, to not being able to do a butterfly,
Mm-hmm.
so stiff. So everything really loosened up. And then I said, okay, maybe I'm imagining this. I tend to be a skeptic. So I stopped making the tablets and drinking it.
Mm-hmm.
Within days, I completely seized up again. So I started drinking the water again, and I loosened up again. It,
Okay.
about a week. And I loosened back up. And I'm like, this is wild. So I started making them for myself, and then I actually started making them for a few friends and family members.
Mm-hmm.
And feedback was very strong from everyone. I gave them just to people who were stiff, had, issues with, like that, and injuries. But then I thought to myself, okay, I think I'm doing everything properly, but there could be something big I'm missing, right? So I found a resume online for a contract, researcher, and it was a PhD medicinal chemist. And I asked him to look over what I was doing. He told me it was the worst pseudoscience he'd ever heard in his life, and to save my money, I sent him my applications. He said, okay, well, there seems to be some evidence that you can use this as a supplement. Okay. I just kept on firing off a new study every day while he was reviewing what I'd done. And just serendipitously, I sent him something that was closely in line to the project he was working on for his pharmaceutical company. He said, listen, like, there's something to this, unless this is widespread fraud in academia, this stuff works, you should commercialize it. Are you looking for it? From there, we got the chemistry right in a few weeks to really refine it, to do it in a closed container. We were getting about 4 ppm in 5 minutes in a sealed container. Scaling up from making 10 tablets to 10 million tablets has a lot of challenges. So it took us a year, 2,000 more iterative adjustments, and 15 failed scale-up attempts at manufacturers until we got our first production-ready tab. And along the way, some of the challenges we were working on, which really frustrated us, when we were doing different things to get it to work in production. We're like, why is this not working now? We're actually creating this cloud that you see, and it was sparging out the saturated gas. We just realized, why are we fighting this? So there's a Isaac Asimov quote that I really like, that people think, discoveries are met with eureka. I've done it, but really they're, that's funny. So it was a few months of failure and fighting this phenomenon until we said, why don't we embrace it? And that's when we invented the open cup tablet. Right? You can just drop it in a cup of water, and we're getting like 10 ppm in about a minute, right? In an open cup.
Wow. And 10 ppm is the amount that was released, or is that the amount that is going in your body?
We're measuring it in titration and like gas chromatography. So depending on temperature of the water, and this is in 500 milliliters of water, right? Okay. So that's about a 5 milligram dosage of hydrogen. So 1 tablet a day puts it at the highest dose, at the highest end of the clinical research. And our clinical research is 2. Our biggest clinical trial that's under review is using 3 tablets a day. In vitro, there's a very clear dose-dependent response. In fact, it shows a dose-dependent response all the way to a supersaturated medium, which would be saturating every cell in your body with hydrogen gas, right? So that's impossible to do to a human body, right? So getting a higher dosage is very, very important. We want to increase that cellular level of H2. And that's kind of what we've done in developing the highest dosage protocol.
So somebody puts a tablet in a 500 milliliter glass cup, let's say, and how long does this take to dissolve, let's say? What's the ideal length of time that an individual would drink it after?
You want to gulp it down immediately, right? So depending...
But it takes some time for it to dissolve.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So depending on water temperature, source water, and actually the shape of the container, it could take anywhere from 40 seconds to 3 minutes, right?
Okay.
So the warmer the water is, the faster it's going to dissolve. Actually, if it's hot water like tea, it might be 25, 30 seconds. We tend to say the 10 ppm is based on about 18 Celsius water, right? In 500 milliliters of distilled or RO. So if you're using a high pH water or a high mineral content water, there's more TDS in there that we're using to facilitate the reaction, are now buffering a lot of the minerals and the pH already in the water, so it's going to slow it down. All the ingredients that need to be solubilized in the water are going to take longer to become solubilized because there's already solids dissolved in the water. Right?
So 18 degrees Celsius is what in Fahrenheit around?
64.
Okay. And so that, let's see. Yeah, so that would be like lukewarm water or what?
Yeah, a little cooler than room temperature.
A little cooler than room temperature, right?
It's pretty tight between about 12 C, which I think is in the 50s, all the way to about 25 C, which is in the 80s. It's pretty tight within about 10%.
Oh, so that's not a big deal.
So if you go to ice water, all of a sudden it takes 3.5 minutes, right? So you're actually retaining less of the H2. or if you use hot water, like boiling water, like tea, it's reacting too fast, and also so much faster that it's dissipating quicker.
So the range is really the temperature of the water that people are going to drink anyway. They're not really drinking ice cold water.
Exactly. Not many people are using it like tea, right? And I just say don't use ice water.
Right. So yeah, just drink normal temperature water.
Yeah.
And
gulp it down right away. Right.
Gulp it down right away as it's dissolving, or like give it 20 seconds.
As soon as the tablet rises to the surface and it starts breaking apart, chug it down. When the water is like milky white like that, you want to chug it down if you can in one gulp, right? So if you find that you can't drink 500 milliliters, but you can drink 250 milliliters, the dissolution kinetics aren't linear, but you're better off dropping it in 250 or 300 milliliters if you can do it in one gulp, right?
Okay.
We're producing up to 10 liters of H2 gas from, our bacteria breaking down carbohydrates, right? So drinking hydrogen works by spiking our cellular concentration for a few minutes, which then has all these benefits in cell signaling, alterations in gene expression. So if you're slowly sipping a bit of hydrogen water all day long, you're not getting this spike in cellular concentration.
So you want that spike in cellular concentration?
Spike, and in vitro it shows the higher the spike goes, the stronger the benefits.
Interesting. So yeah, just for people looking, this is the hydrogen tablets, and
I'll show my new label too, so they can see.
Oh, okay, you got a new label.
We have a little bit of inventory left with those labels, but
okay, cool. Yeah.
The new packaging. We did it because we actually just got Informed Sport certified. Right. So we've been tested against all banned substances that, WADA that oversees like Olympics and.
Oh, I got it. Okay. Interesting.
A label redesigned to show that we've been through the whole battery of testing.
Interesting. So just I can tell you based on my experience what I've done, and some people send me stuff and I test them out. And so I was actually skeptical of these hydrogen tablets, and I actually didn't try it out for like 3 to 4 months or more. I don't know, maybe it was 6 months or longer. I really don't remember. It was just, I got it and it was like, all right, I'll get to that. But essentially, my girlfriend was saying like, hey, I want to try out hydrogen. I'm like, oh, we have a whole bunch of it. I should try it out as well. So I tried out, and I did it your way, and it wasn't really working for me so much. And the reason I didn't like it is because I didn't like the taste of the water. And I know you have different flavors. Yeah, exactly. So that's a different situation. I'm just talking about the unflavored ones. I also didn't like just standing there and drinking water for like, it seemed like somewhat of a big task for me, right? Like I'm a pill guy. I'm like, let me, give me the pill. So what I did was I said, okay, let me try out. I first tried out like 3 tablets, and then I said, let me try out like 6 tablets, and I just swallowed them.
So I know you messaged that, and we can't recommend that. For a younger, healthier guy like you, there's probably no issues with that whatsoever. Just for safety, I've taken 20.
Right.
Just see what happens. You just burp like crazy and get
right. Yeah. So what I can say is that
for older people, right, to do that, if you don't have enough stomach acid, right, it could not dissolve fast enough. The reaction's exothermic. It could sit against your stomach lining. It could create ulcers. Right.
Yeah. I can definitely see that as well. So the thing is, I agree that, the way you guys are recommending it is smart, because there's always these edge cases, and you guys don't want to get sued, and people don't want to lose their lives or have serious side effects. Sorry?
Yeah. Even if it's a 1 in a million that it causes ulcers, right? We're making millions of tablets a month. That means people would be getting.
Exactly. Yeah, I know it's very possible. Like you said, if they're not producing enough stomach acid, if their gut lining is not that healthy, if they're old.
The unhealthier you are, typically the less stomach acid you have, the weaker your stomach is. So the people who need hydrogen the most would be the ones
Most at risk.
First.
Right. Yeah. So the thing is, I agree that like doing it the way that you're describing is safer. It's just, the way I realized that for me, I tried 6, again, it's because I know I'm healthy. It's a different situation. And then I also did it with I took it with food. I drank a lot of water. I wasn't stupid about it. And then I said, okay, so when I took 6, I'm like, okay, I can already see that this works. And this is not like a placebo or anything, or this works. There were some side effects like burping, like you said.
You get less if you're drinking the water, actually.
Yeah, sure. Right, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah,
so
when you take 6, yeah, you're gonna burp. Even often, I'll drop like 5 in a glass of water before a big workout, right? And I will burp a little bit. For others, I recommend, because the reaction isn't linear, right? When you drop more in water, you're not doubling the dose, right? You might go up 50% for one, another 30% for two. I don't really care about the cost of them, so I'll just get the highest dose I can. But for other people, if you can say drink 1 in 500 milliliters, chug it, drink another 1 in 500 milliliters, chug it, you're going to get the higher dose doing that. But the amount of water you can drink is an issue, right?
I got it.
In water, say in inhalation, and the reason why about 65% of the human research uses water over inhalation is studying the cellular concentrations, with like Cmax and everything of H2 in the cells. It takes 100 times more inhaled gas than when dissolved in water. We don't exactly know why, but it seems when you're inhaling it, you're exhaling most of it out, whereas in water, it's actually reaching you a lot better.
Interesting.
Right?
Interesting.
So, likely, again, if you say didn't drink water while you swallowed them, you might actually get a lot of it just being exhaled. We don't know yet, right? Because we don't have the research. But if, I know you said you drank a lot of water with it, that's probably just saturating the water in your stomach. But again, because there are potential dangers of doing it that way for certain parts of the population, we couldn't even properly study that.
Right.
Especially in the elderly population.
So what I do now is I don't take 6, like as a, that was kind of like a mega dosing experiment, like taking a lot, making sure I feel something from it. And then what I do now is I just put 1 pill in my pill container. I take it with food and with water, and I haven't had any issues that way.
Don't take it with food. One of my pending patents is on using various polysaccharides fibers to create some gels with H2.
So you're saying do not take it with food?
Yeah, no, don't. Probably it's better on an empty stomach. Right?
Oh, interesting.
Especially if you're having a lot of carbohydrates, right, in your food. Polysaccharides actually, the cheapest and most effective is pectin, I've found. I can turn pectin into jello shots with hydrogen that have over 100 ppm. And I have a pending patent on that. But what that means, because it's so stable, right? It's over 100 ppm sometimes, and it's super stable. That means you're going to be getting a more slow, continuous dose. But if you're on an empty stomach, right, it's all being uptaken right away.
I got it. That's interesting. I think that makes sense. I mean, the thing is that I think it's partly a convenience question.
Yeah.
Like it's hard for me to take things on an empty stomach. It just is like, I take one thing on an empty stomach right when I wake up, but I make sure that it's something that I can chew and eat, right? So I take it in like a chewable form.
I feel you. I mean, like I said, I had multiple ulcers. I used to have a rock hard, like steel drum of a stomach that I could take any. Now, like I was on meds for like 2 years to repair my stomach lining, and it's not terrible, but it certainly isn't what it was 5 years ago.
Right.
A lot of things bug me, but I just always like getting it out there. What probably is the most effective way? Right.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting to know. Now, you mentioned inhalation. I've experimented with inhalation, and it was one of these conferences, and it was really expensive, number one. So I didn't, it's not feasible to pay $6,000 for.
Some of them charge like $10K.
Yeah, it could have been $10K, or I really don't even know.
A lot of these companies aren't really ethically saying what the dosage is, right? Like say human research will say, oh, we used 4% inhaled gas, 4% of the atmosphere, right? We're in 8 liters a minute. Now this machine is 4% and the flow rate is 1 liter a minute on some of them. And they're charging $6,000 or $8,000. So really that's 1/8 the dosage that's been used in the research.
So there's ways you're saying that you can describe these things because there's hydrogen in the air.
Yeah, like a fraction, right? But you have to, again, boost up the concentration. So a lot of companies, and they even do it with ppm. That's why I always like saying, yeah, we'll get 10 ppm in 500 milliliters. But if you drop, one tablet in the ocean, you're getting 0.0 to a 1, ppm, right?
Right. So it's dissolving in the atmosphere when you're breathing it in, and it's kind of like not actually getting into you in that.
Or like with these machines that are commercialized, they'll say, oh, we're 4% hydrogen gas, just like the research. Well, yeah, the research uses 4%, but it's at 8 liters a minute, which is what we're breathing in, right? 4% of 8 liters, right? Whereas the machine is 4% of 1 liter.
I see.
Right? So you're still breathing in air that doesn't have the 4% to make up 7 liters, and you're only getting this cannula with 4% of 1 liter going in. So I'm actually designing an inhalation unit with a manufacturer overseas right now that will get the proper dosage that's used clinically.
Interesting. Right? And are you producing that for like businesses or consumers?
Consumers.
Okay, so you're gonna make a consumer product.
Yeah,
because I actually did find the
$6,000.
What was that?
It's gonna be a lot cheaper than $6,000.
I did find that the inhalation stuff did have an effect. I don't, I like if I breathe in oxygen, like an oxygen concentrator, I'll also feel maybe a similar effect or something like that.
Some of the machines on the market are doing 2 parts oxygen and 1 part hydrogen, right?
Yeah,
and still through a and so if you're getting 67% oxygen, you're going to get high. That's why when you're in Vegas, you're sitting there talking, having drinks, and it's 6 a.m. and you're not tired because they're pumping oxygen into the rooms. So again, the research isn't great on using this heavy oxygen with hydrogen. 1, what's the flow rate? 2, when people are like, oh, wow, I feel great. Is that because they're high from the oxygen, or because maybe the low dose of hydrogen, depending on their flow rate, was doing something?
Right. Yeah, that was kind of like a confounding variable. It's like if I'm breathing in oxygen, I can't really tell what the hydrogen here is doing or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. But in any case, so that's really interesting. So now let's get to some of the benefits of hydrogen, right? You had your personal experience. Let's get to some of the benefits that, and list them in like the order that are most researched, if you will. Yeah.
Well, most researched is athletic performance. There's most publications in humans on athletic performance. We have 2 publications in humans on our tablets on athletic performance, and we have more actually underway. So in our first trial, it was mid-age overweight women. It was 28-day double-blind placebo-controlled crossover. So all of our trials, our placebo was a magnesium effervescent tablet, right? That makes CO2. It looks the same as a hydrogen tablet. It dissolves in the same time frame. It tastes roughly the same. It makes a white cloud of CO2, just like the white cloud of hydrogen. So it's very well placebo-controlled. Our first 3 trials were crossover design. So everyone did the hydrogen washout and then, did placebo or back and forth in a randomized manner. So in the mid-age overweight women, I think it was an 8% increase in VO2 max at the end of 28 days. It was pretty significant, I think close to like 50% in work completed in time to exhaustion. Now, both myself and that research team agree that probably, hydrogen isn't directly improving VO2 max, and that's actually what our second trial showed, but rather it's speeding up recovery. They're slowly working a little bit more every day, and they're recovering a little bit faster, right? And supported by a really strong rodent study where it was forced swim tests in rats. The one group was, consumed hydrogen, and the other group hadn't, and they both swam to failure. In the hydrogen group, it actually spiked the stress response. So the oxidative stress went higher in the hydrogen group than the control group, but redox was established significantly quicker in the hydrogen group than the control group. So that means the rats had more stress as if they worked out longer and harder and did, swim more than the control rats. Then they were recovered and ready to go faster. That's largely supported. Our second study was a 20 participant, again, double-blind, placebo-control crossover, and it was young, healthy, athletic participants, their 20s, and it was a VO2 max stress test on a graded increase on the treadmill, and it didn't improve VO2 max. We'd be billionaires if it did. Every athlete, amateur and pro alike, would want this supplement immediately if a single dose improved VO2 max. But what it did do is between minutes 1 to 9, and the average drop off was about 13 minutes, if I recall correctly, it significantly reduced submaximal heart rate. So it was 5 or 6 beats a minute less, meaning the hydrogen group was pulling the same oxygen, right, that the placebo group was, but their hearts were beating significantly less. So they were doing the same work, pulling the same oxygen, but their body was working less. And
interesting.
Anecdotally, what we're seeing from a lot of pro athletes that are taking the product and a lot of aspiring pros and amateurs is, and this is what I found back in like CrossFit like trainings, it doesn't improve like round 1 of your workout, but you hold your numbers a lot better. My common law spouse, my girlfriend, she runs marathons and triathlons, and she's training for an Ironman. She says it doesn't improve her, say, 5K or 3 mile pace, right? But it certainly does in a marathon. She can hold a pace for longer. So
what are some other like clinical uses, do you think?
Clinical for athletic or other uses?
Let's say other.
Yeah, so our third and fourth studies, the one was on non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, right? Now, 1 in 3 North Americans have it. In 28-day double-blind placebo-controlled crossover, it clinically reduced liver fat, right? And it dropped AST by 10% and improved insulin sensitivity by 11%.
Oh, nice.
So that was pretty significant. And metabolic issues are the second biggest amount of human clinical evidence so far. Our fourth trial was 60 participants for 6 months on metabolic syndrome. And this is under review right now.
When you say your fourth trial, like that means that you
on our tablets.
Okay,
right?
so these studies were done on your tablets.
So one of the things we're doing is we're supporting a lot of public research, right?
I see.
So today, we have 4 finished clinical trials and 2 finished case studies. 1 case study and 1 clinical trial are currently under peer review right now. This is in less than 3 years. We have 7 currently underway, right, that are recruited and underway. We have 6 more in the planning stage. And we actually have, we're working with 4 other public universities on rodent programs to try and figure out the mechanisms of action of hydrogen better and other new areas that hydrogen can help with. So we donate product and in a lot of cases, extra funds for more markers to public teams under no publication agreement. That means that they're free to publish results, whether it works or it doesn't. Right? So we're kind of putting it all on the line, on the research. And now what we're doing on top of that, we've started a private research program because a lot of public teams don't want to replicate the work of other public researchers. They always want to do what's interesting to them. So we're coming behind all of these public publications, and we're fully funding private research to look to see if the results are replicated. Because replication is so important in science.
Right.
So that's what we're doing now. And this metabolic syndrome one, I mean, I've seen it. It's under review right now, and it's pretty remarkable data. It basically reversed metabolic syndrome in all parameters in 6 months. Participants lost weight. It improved their cholesterol. reduce their inflammatory markers, CRP, TNF-alpha, interleukin-6, improve lipid peroxidation. I think the only thing it wasn't beneficial for was T-bars, but it improved MDA and DN conjugates. It improved, serum like vitamin E and C, so improved, redox, and also improved nitrites, I believe. It lowered fasting blood glucose, I think, from like 126 to 102 in the H2 group, while it raised. I think I mentioned they lost quite a bit of weight. It improved their BMI and their waist to hip ratios, and also dramatically lowered their triglycerides and improved their,
So these were people with metabolic syndrome, liver fat, and okay. And were they diagnosed with any conditions?
None of them were diabetic, so there was a lot of exclusion criteria. They couldn't have any, diseases. Fortunately, the FDA doesn't consider metabolic syndrome a disease; it's a reversible condition, right? The only things that seem to be able to help metabolic syndrome right now, there's some natural compounds that are promising, but the only surefire things are improved diet and exercise.
Right.
So hydrogen is as powerful as it's shown to be in this early metabolic research. That's another very key ally to help in this epidemic, because it's 1 in 3 North Americans and Western Europeans that have metabolic syndrome or NAFLD. And if you have one, it's a 90% correlative that you have the other, right? A lot of the research coming out shows that not only are they causative of each other, but they're probably the same issue that are currently expressing in different ways.
Interesting. So then, okay, so what was so one was the athletic research, then there's the metabolic research, and then what was number 3?
So number 3, there's a lot of research on both neurological issues, both like traumatic, like acute stresses, and long-term issues. So there's a number of publications on, say, post-stroke recovery, right? There's actually one team has a registered clinical trial. They're using the tablets right now in the US, Stony Brook in New York, and it's a 100-participant post-stroke recovery, right, that they're doing. There's research on, mild cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's, nothing using our tablets, but both using water and inhaled gas for that. One of our case studies is on concussion recovery. So it was in a single pro soccer player, and we're in early talks with some teams on doing a full RCT on concussion recovery. There's good rodent data on traumatic brain injury also. There's another registered clinical trial using our tablets, again, out of Stony Brook, on Parkinson's disease, 70 patients for 52 weeks, right? So that's a very exciting area of research. And if you ask a lot of the researchers, they're most excited about the research on neurological areas, just because there's such a dearth in anything that's effective in these areas. So anything that has promise is very exciting. But in my opinion, the metabolic issues is showing a stronger, more clear-cut benefit.
Interesting. So what are the main, like, just the top?
Sorry,
what's the top mechanism of action with hydrogen water?
So we're still exploring what the exact mechanism of how it works, because everything is indirect at this point. But hydrogen so far has shown to alter over 10,000 gene expressions. It's shown a benefit in 170 models. The leading hypothesis is it works via hormesis, right? And doesn't just work via hormesis, but it seems to regulate other forms of hormesis, like I mentioned, with exercise, with fasting. We haven't studied fasting in humans yet with hydrogen, but in other forms, we've got some fasting and hydrogen research. The really cool thing about hydrogen, though, is there's no dose where it's shown to be toxic, right? Use it, and we've used it for decades in mixed gas deep sea diving at upwards of 10,000 times a dose, thousands of times a dose that we can get through water. And it takes more hydrogen to create a narcotic-like effect, to create hydrogen narcosis, than it takes nitrogen, which is the majority of what we're breathing right now, right? So hydrogen is so incredibly safe. So we don't yet know how it's so safe, how there's no toxic effects that are known, but yet it's working by hormesis. But there's actually a couple teams working on this right now. I know one team I've heard is close. I know another team that I'm donating some funds to that has a really cool model and a really cool assay where they measure over 10,000 different protein changes, and then they have the algorithm that figures out how it happened in real time. So that's getting done. That's really getting done so we can really fully understand hydrogen. But the most important things that it's shown to do, for us, for people who are interested, first, it's shown to promote homeostatic function of our redox. So it's not a direct antioxidant. It regulates our antioxidant production via the NRF2 pathway, but it also seems to regulate our oxidative stresses like nitric oxide, because we have beneficial oxidative stresses. Nitric oxide is a free radical, but it has a lot of roles as a signaling molecule. So hydrogen is shown to regulate nitric oxide, but it's also shown to regulate production of our glutathione, superoxide dismutase, catalase, right? So in some models, hydrogen has been pro-oxidative stress, and in some models, it's been an antioxidant, indirect.
Interesting.
Likewise, it's done the same thing for autophagy, right? It's both upregulated, our autophagic response, and it's deactivated autophagy. It deactivated autophagy, and I think a chronic heart failure model where autophagy was a bad thing.
Oh, interesting.
Right? So it seemed to be very smart. I don't know what word to use, but it seemed to regulate homeostatic function of a lot of these things. Same things in cellular senescence and apoptosis. Same thing in inflammation. It seemed to regulate production of pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory cytokines. And that's why in some models it's had no anti-inflammatory effect, and in other models it's had an incredibly powerful anti-inflammatory effect. One of our case studies under review is topical hydrogen in a grade 2 ankle tear. And the 24-hour reduction in inflammation, right, from a ballooned ankle is almost magic, right? And we actually have a full RCT ongoing right now, recruiting out of pro soccer players, that's directly comparing topical hydrogen to RICE protocol, which is rest, ice, compress, elevate. So hydrogen really seems to have these powerful benefits, but they only seem to come as a rescue effect. If you put hydrogen on a healthy cell in vitro, nothing happens. And then if you artificially damage that cell, you see all these changes, these rescuing effects coming into play.
Interesting. So you were saying before, and I want to get back to this a bit, that you get hydrogen also from eating carbs, the breakdown of carbs?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Okay. So now, that would say that if you're on a ketogenic diet, then you'd probably do better with hydrogen.
Yeah, your hydrogen production is already going to be impaired if you're not getting a lot of carbohydrates in.
Right.
And interestingly, a lot of these models that hydrogen's shown a potential benefit in, we know have improved, or we know have impaired, microbiotas, right? And actually, there's human research on hydrogen improving the microbiota, and there's animal research from rodents all the way to goats showing that universally hydrogen improves the microbiota. So in that sense, drinking hydrogen water, and actually this is interesting, there's no research on inhalation improving the microbiota, which could be why drinking hydrogen works in some models where even high dose inhalation doesn't, right? It could be an additive or synergistic effect that you're both improving your microbiota to produce more endogenous hydrogen, and you're getting the exogenous hydrogen. Right?
That's really interesting. Okay, and so anyone on a low carb diet, I would recommend they should get a source of hydrogen, and these tablets seem like a good source. Now, some of the limitations from there, you mentioned privately that there were about 60, 70 studies on with humans in hydrogen water.
Case studies to RCTs, specifically mentioning hydrogen, there's 71, because I just compiled the database, but there's an additional 14 that were around or before the seminal article in Nature Med that we now know was hydrogen water, but falsely attributed it to electrically reduced water. But when you look at the method, that ionizing machine, it was making above the therapeutic threshold of hydrogen, or they were using magnesium, calling it a negative ORP, oxidative reduction potential water beverage.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah,
So
interesting.
the ORP was coming from hydrogen, and of course the magnesium blend was making hydrogen. So there's an additional 14 that, in a post hoc way, we can say these were hydrogen water studies.
How many randomized clinical trials were there?
It's the majority. It's going to be over 50.
Right, over 50. Okay, as a rough estimate. And how many? And so those clinical trials, how many of those used? How many of them were placebo-controlled trials?
I think it's over 40 or 50 that are placebo-controlled randomized. And the big issue, my big criticism on this research is there isn't a lot of replication work. And what is replicative isn't exactly replicative. They haven't used the exact same model, the exact same dose. It's more.
And why is that?
I have really beaten my head against the wall talking to a lot of the public researchers to get results replicated. And they'll all say, oh, that's a cool model, but I need something new and novel, right? I want to do it this way or that way. And that's why there's a lot of supportive research, but no true replicative research, because it's all public research at this point, right?
Right.
So,
and the researchers want to like learn something new, a unique mechanism or something like that.
The researchers want to get something in a high impact factor journal. They want to have a new discovery, do all this new stuff. And when you're trying to publish something in a journal, one of the big questions for the journal is this novel? And a purely replicative work isn't novel, right? So all of a sudden, maybe the first work was published in a good journal, but then the replicative work is in a lower impact factor journal. So what credit did that public team get? They get nothing.
Unless it comes out negative trial, then they'll put it in a good journal.
That's difficult. A lot of negative trial studies don't get published because a lot of journals don't accept negative finding studies.
Well, when so in the beginning stages maybe, but like let's say if they're finding antioxidants are bad or something, then they'll publish that.
Groundbreaking, like when you do these massive cohort studies, like they've done on vitamin E with thousands of participants that found that high dose antioxidant therapy actually causes more all-cause mortality, more heart disease, more of all these issues. Yeah, that's a big finding, right? But if it's a small RCT that just had a negative finding or a weak trend, it's very hard to publish that.
Right.
But likewise, if it's an exact replicative work, it's very hard to publish it in a good journal. And
interesting.
Now their grant funds, right, to do an exact replicative work that isn't furthering their career, isn't furthering their knowledge, isn't doing any of these things.
I guess they might publish it if it was a really big trial.
Yeah.
But then that would mean that usually public funds would not cover that.
It's just in a bad journal, right?
Right.
And now, and I'm not an expert in this area, but my feeling is, researchers aren't going to want to do this, aren't going to want to replicate, aren't going to want negative findings. They want to be really confident about it because they're using up their grant funds. They want promotion. They want bigger grants. They want to show their publication record, right? To expand what they can do, right? Which is often why public research moves very, very slowly, but private research moves a lot faster, right? Mm-hmm. Because when you have a target for a molecule in private research, you can just replicate, and go in a straight line. But public research is just all over the place.
Right.
In 1,000 different directions.
So what kind of IP, you mentioned privately as well that, all the companies selling these tablets are essentially, they're using the IP that your company created?
Yeah, so we developed the open cup tablets. I mean, there's different versions of them out there. A lot of companies have a lot of their own protocols, that they add this ingredient or they want this control in place. I can't say who they are, right, unless they happily display our logo. So there's a good 20 brands that happily put our logo on the back of their bottle because they want to use, our clinical findings and, they're proud to support us. Others don't put it on, but they'll bring me on for interviews and talk about this stuff and mention me in articles. Some just want to pretend I don't exist, right? But they'll have their there's only a few companies that are exact, replicas, because every company's QC product, procedure is different, right? So we might have to, change this or change that to get it to work within a company's paradigm and their own quality controls, right? But then we have our own quality controls too. And we're the first hydrogen supplement in the world to have legal status, with the governing body. So we successfully filed new dietary ingredient status with the FDA, which puts us in a pretty small club. Estimates have it between about 4 to 8% of supplements on the market in the US have new dietary ingredient status, right? Which is a legal requirement. So that took us a few years, a massive submission, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Interesting. Wow. And so how much, let's say somebody wants to buy 60 tablets, how much would that cost? How much does a bottle cost?
It's retail, it's $59.99, but we'll set up a discount code for your listeners so they can try it out for 10% off.
Okay. That's cool. That's great. All right. So this was really interesting. We spoke really about a lot of stuff that I wanted to speak about, and it was super interesting. Where can people find more about you?
So I have a blog myself. I've got a couple 100,000 words of content at drinkhrw.com. We can link directly to my blog. I write a lot about hydrogen, obviously, but a lot about other health issues. We have a small victory series that talks about small little improvements you can make in your life. People don't realize, 100 calorie a day surplus, what that can do to your weight throughout a year, and what you can do, little things like just pacing around or making a slightly better decision here or there, that you could go into a 100 calorie deficit, right? People want these massive wins in life, but that's not how wins happen. There's small victories that add up and the boulder starts rolling. So we have that series. We have a lot of more content too, but we'll put a direct link to talk about the product too. That will get you
excellent
discount code.
Excellent. It was great talking to you, and I wish you the best. It seems like you have something really good going on, and I would recommend it to my listeners to buy it because, I tried it out. I like it. So I always, before I recommend anything, I always try it out. And I've gotten a lot of people sending me stuff that I just never speak about. I never recommend. Because I really, before I come up with a recommendation, I really vet it. And so the review is just for people, the positives are that I think it works. It has benefits. It's unclear exactly which exact condition it'll be good for, or, that'll help that'll have a clinically significant effect. But I can tell you that it does have health benefits of one kind or another. It does do things that are positive for the body. And, the research is still coming out, but I would personally recommend it. The only thing that is perhaps negative about it is, like, if you get the one that doesn't that has no flavor, then it doesn't taste great. But I mean, it's not terrible. It's just not like great.
I can say a lot of the unflavored supplements I've had in the past, because I used to always go for unflavored with less excipients when I was taking a lot of pre-workouts and everything.
Oh, some of those are terrible.
Are way worse.
You can't consume it. No, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. For listeners, I'd describe it best as a very strong mineral water.
It's not bad. I'm not being like hyperbolic here. It's not bad. It's just like
it doesn't.
It's not a beneficial. Like, it's not a drink that you'll drink to taste well.
No,
to taste good.
And that's why we developed the blue raspberry ones, right? For people who want a drink that tastes good, we do that one. We find a lot of the biohackers don't care. They chug down a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And I would be one of those people, but I'm just saying, like, there's, I just want to put out the full review that
100%. One thing I will say for people who want to see an immediate benefit, what we know about hydrogen is it seems to come to this rescue effect. And universally, people seem to notice a much stronger response when they're impaired in some way, right? Say you're hungover or you're jet lagged and you didn't get a good night's sleep or you're super tired. That's when you get an immediate burst, right? That you feel better after a single dose, right? You're going to be accumulating damage every day, even if you're healthy, right? So hydrogen is going to be slowly helping you every day. But if you want a big experiential result, take it when you're at your worst. And that's when you're really going to feel an upkick.
Yeah, you know what? I'm actually going to go drink some hydrogen water now. And you know what? I'm actually going to I was a little negligent in that I was focused on just the hydrogen and the benefits, and like, I put it as part of my regimen. I take one tablet every day. I did not yet I don't know if I tried out the raspberry one. So I'm going to try that one out as like something that I don't take as a pill. I don't because I'm sure as it is, it doesn't taste like bad or anything. I could definitely take it. But I smelled the raspberry one. It smells like it'll taste pretty decent.
It tastes pretty good. It's slightly sweetened, slightly flavored. So it tastes pretty pleasant. A lot of people
Does
like
it
it.
have aspartame or something in that one?
It's got sucralose, and I've got an article writing why we have
Okay.
sucralose. For instance, we've tried natural sweeteners like stevia and monk fruit that cause foaming. They take about 6 minutes to disintegrate. Sucralose doesn't impair the hydrogen in any way whatsoever, right? So we still get a high dose of hydrogen.
Okay.
Now, some of the issues like that people will bring that sucralose might affect the microbiota. Well, actually, stevia might too, right? All the reviews that talk about sucralose maybe not affecting the microbiota, stevia has the exact same issue, right?
Well, everything affects the microbiota. I mean, like,
and monk fruit hasn't been studied, right? So
right.
at least we know we've studied sucralose more, and in sucralose versus stevia, you need 4 to 5 times more stevia to get the same sweetness as sucralose, and stevia is toxic at a much lower dose than sucralose. So the safety established of sucralose is higher than stevia, and you need 5 times more stevia, and stevia takes it from high dose hydrogen down to about 1.6 ppm only, whereas sucralose, we're still getting 5-6 ppm and 500 milliliters because the flavor does lower the H2 a little bit. So if we know that hydrogen improves the microbiota, right, and we know that both stevia and sucralose have about the same results, that they impair it a little bit, you want to have the higher dose hydrogen, right? Especially because sucralose has more safety data than stevia. And, this is kind of confirmed by the fact that we know sugar is really harmful on our microbiota, but red wine improves our microbiota, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to look at the whole thing you're ingesting, right?
Right, definitely. Yeah, I mean, there are some people who you probably know this. I mean, there's definitely people who are gonna care about that, and you're not gonna convince them either one way or another.
Either way or another, and most of those people tend to just buy the one that has no sweetener or flavor of any.
Yeah,
Nothing makes them, they don't want anything in there,
and that's fine. I personally don't really care that much about the I wouldn't care that much. I mean, I wouldn't drink that much of it, but I wouldn't say that it's like something. I get much worse effects from other some natural ingredients, like just grains. If I eat grains compared to Splenda, I don't think I'll notice anything, but grains I'll feel like crap.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have an artificially sweetened, beverage, and I don't feel anything. I have a Coke with full sugar, and it drags me down.
Oh yeah. If I'm drinking, if I would drink a Coke, and that's not something I do ordinarily, but once in I don't know, once every 4, 5, 6 months, I don't know. If I'm drinking a Coke and it's like a sugar one versus a artificial sweetener one, I'll go with the artificial sweetener one.
I'm the same. You're better off drinking water,
Yeah, that's the best, obviously.
But
the best is the hydrogen one.
But we developed the flavored one for people who like drinking soda and they like drinking juice.
Right. Right.
To get a healthy alternative there that tastes good, right? That you can drink down and enjoy drinking it and still get the benefits of the hydrogen.
I'm actually going to try that one out right after this. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important to just really inform people about the pros and cons of each one. And
100%. Nothing's perfect.
Right.
Nothing's ever perfect, and that's why I have an R&D lab too. That I work at, and every week since the 2,000 iterative adjustments that we got our first scale up, we have over 2,000 more to get to where we are right now. And every week we're trying to improve it, because for sure we want the most people to get the highest dose of hydrogen and enjoy it at the same time.
Nice. Okay, great. So it was great talking to you again, and have a great day.
Thanks, you too.